Hello, everybody. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Welcome to Morning Mindset Cafe, where today we're talking about how many receive good advice, few profit from it. Will you? So the question really goes to when you ask for and receive good advice, do you put it to use? Now, good advice, is that what you profit from? And sometimes it means business. Sometimes it means knowledge. Sometimes it means grow your heart. Sometimes it means physical. Profit means that you received more from putting the advice to use than what you had before you put the advice to use. That's how I look at it. Anybody's welcome to jump into the seat, talk about the good advice. Have you profited from it? How does it look? Yeah, I don't know. What are some examples? What are some examples, right? Share some good advice. Let's see if we can all profit from it. Happy to have that as the discussion as well. All right, so one thing, I was going to put this out as a challenge to you all, those in business, for the next week. And you're welcome to take it as a challenge. This is advice that was given to me many years ago when I started building my business. And just this morning, I heard somebody on a short video say the same thing. And I said, you know what? That is good advice. And I profited from it. And it's based on action. It's not based on think about it, think it through, do some research. It's not based on anything except action. So the advice I was given wasn't just do it. All right. So the advice I was given that I profited from is write a list of the people that if you met them and made them a part of your life, they would change your life forever. Okay. When I did that, and I gave it serious thought, this isn't the just I think they would, I think they would have a good impact on my life. I think I could learn something from this. No, this goes deeper. These are the people that I knew that if I could associate myself with them, get in front of them, they could change my life forever. So when I made the list, it wasn't very long. And one of them was, I knew her, but I hadn't been listening to her. And it was funny when she made it to my list, because I realized that I was getting a lot of good advice from her. This is years later, I realized that, right? I was getting a lot of good advice and I wasn't putting it to use. But I put it on, I put it on my list. And this time when I met with her, it was intentional. And she was my first coach, first mentor rather than coach, because she was about the tactical how-tos, right? And she'd been in business, just recently retired. Little Nancy is her name. Not Little Nancy, Nancy is her name. And when I sat with her and talked with her with the intention of, I know she can change my life. She did. Now the others, I didn't know when I put them on the list how I was going to connect with them, what I was going to say. That didn't matter. That didn't matter. And honestly, I didn't contact every one of them because fear held me back. It has held me back. And I'm committing. There's still a couple there on the list, right? That it doesn't frighten me anymore when I look at the names. I don't get anxious. So they're on the list. The how will come to me. I have no doubt about that. So that's an idea. There's some good advice for you. You can profit from it if you're in receiving mode. Thank you, Ken. Ken is saying to profit from good advice, you have to be in receive mode. Unsolicited advice may be good, but it needs to be recognized for what it is and not who says it or why they are saying it. Yes. And that is the context from which I'm actually talking about, is I'm looking for good advice. And I'm looking for counsel. You know, it is, and there is a difference, right, between advice and counsel. Advice can also be viewed as opinions, but it also can be, I'm going to give you some advice, and this advice is based on my own experience here, me in that context. And that's the context I'd like to keep this in, that unsolicited, okay, but what about I'm looking for it? I'm looking for answers. Right? I'm looking for the secret of success. I'm looking for the shortcuts. I'm looking for how to do something. I'm looking for advice on how to proceed. You know, where should I go? Who should I talk to? Those kind of things. And then there's the others that, you know, like we're in discussions like this on the Morning Mindset Cafe, where how many golden nuggets have been dropped in discussions here? I lost count. I know many of you would write them into the comments, or the response from many of us would be, wow, that's powerful. That's good stuff. We recognized that it was good information and good advice on what I could do next. So, come on in, talk to me. How do I reconcile conflicting advice? It's a good question. I have to weigh it against who I am at the moment and what it is I'm looking to do and who is giving the advice, where it's coming from. So even if I went out looking for it, I mean, there's conflicting advice all the time about sales. All the time, right? That if I don't ask the questions to get past the first piece of advice, learn more. You know, there are. Again, are we looking at advice or are we looking at opinions? But then again, not even that. You know what? It all ultimately comes down to me and what was going to work for me. So, on the one hand, we have salespeople who are trained in the persuasion tactics and techniques, right? And then on the other hand, we have those who are more consultative salespeople, who would much prefer, let's figure out who you are, what you need, what's the problem. And if I have the answer, that's great. And if I don't, I can recognize that and not try to force it on you. You know? So it's weighed against, I weigh it against my own values, the trust level I have in the people providing the advice, and select that which works for me. Does that answer your question, Ken? I like what Gail said about, who's giving the advice. But see, I can't even say that because I can tell you that there are tons of marketing experts. There are tons of biochemistry experts. There are tons of neuroscience experts. There are tons of psychological experts, right? And they can all give advice in one form or another. I mean, if I'm in the educational system and I go to an advisor and I don't follow their advice, why didn't I? I mean, that's the question. I went there looking for it. If I'm wanting to enter into, I am thinking back in my own education, into the robotics industry, at what level do I want to be in that industry? Well, when I first started my education, there was one particular level I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in R&D. And I went to an advisor and got actually really good advice on who to approach, how to have those conversations, how to plan out the education, right? And I didn't take it. I didn't take it. I could have profited from it, but I didn't take it. Instead, I continued on the education path I took, and based on the circumstances at the time, I chose a different path. And Preston is saying expert is someone who has at least 10,000 hours. My dad was an expert after many years. There is that too. Expert is part of the word experience, isn't it? I mean, there's knowledge experts and then there's experiential experts. And then there's experts in particular skills. You know, I happen to be really good at putting 2 and 2 together and making it look like 5. Then it can really confuse you when we get into a conversation. Or having 1 and 1 come together and have it come up 0. Good old binary code. Hey, Matt. Good to see you.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
Very, very well. Hop in here quick for a few minutes, and I've always thought, because I've noticed myself get the same advice again and again and again, and I always think it's just they just point to something that I don't notice. I may not understand the advice at the time, but sometimes I feel like there's nothing they couldn't give me that I couldn't understand myself with enough time if I were to go out there and actually experience something and learn from it. Because I look back at certain piece of advice and I go, that makes sense now, rather than at the time me hearing it and going, I don't understand that, but you're right. Part of it is trusting the person telling you the advice that you would experience down that path if you can't understand it fully.
Well, doesn't then that mean we could learn to ask questions about the advice we're being given?
Exactly. I mean, not if
what
we're
do you mean by that? What
not if we're 5.
Oh, well, no, I'm talking as adults. Come on, keep it in context here. I'm talking as adults, right? We're adults and we're trying to move forward with our businesses. We're trying to move forward with being better for the day, right? So those are ways that I view that we can profit from good advice. How can I move forward today with being a little bit better? Take me forward and grow while I'm doing it. Well, there's ways we can do that. And there's that's a way to profit from the good advice. And then, of course, in business, the way to profit from good advice in business is to actually do it. I mean, if you're in business, you should have an idea of who the heck you're listening to and what you're following somebody. You're following the guidance of somebody, whether it's in person or, programs like this where you're a part of a discussion and somebody comes in and you're well respected in an industry and they just gave out some really good advice. Something like that.
Yeah, I've always thought that it was possible to discover very important things before you had to have all of the experience to internalize them. I think that's the point of advice is to discover certain truths about what you're doing in your industry before you have to have like all the experience just to be able to internalize it. Like if you can hear it
Right.
early, you can prepare for it, and that's taking advantage of the advice being given to you. And I've got a lot of that from like books that I've read and people I've met and mentors I've had. And that's just because I've had those connections in the same sort of industry and field.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to have the experience to learn the lesson. We can learn from other people's mistakes.
That's it. Learning from other people's mistakes is to me, that is a way to describe the shortcut. That's the shortcut. You're still going to do the work. You're just going to do it in a way that works. Not like I did, which is ignoring the advice of some who said doing it that way is a really long, hard, it's arduous and you're going to frustrate yourself. Completely ignored that advice. Completely. There's a better way to do this. Really? No, my way is really good. Oh, yeah. It worked, but it took a lot longer than it should have.
It's not like when we take the advice, we're like copying what the person's doing. It's really just the system. Like there's advice in terms of you need to know this, like this is a piece of knowledge. And then there's advice and this is how this works. Like there's a lot of books on books and books on and books and books. And then there's books on life with advice on how you should approach it. I try to stick to the books on life more often than the books on books on books on books on books on books.
Okay. And on books?
Yeah. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think probably my level of awareness is just because I've read so many personal growth books and I've had so many mentors that have given me more advice on life and perspective than on knowledge, I guess, or information. There's a difference between those two.
But here's the thing. You are in the mode of receiving. You're actually seeking the advice. I think that's why you're able to profit from it.
Yeah. Because you're not seeking
it. Even if what's stumbling at me? Even if you're not seeking for specific advice on how to do something, but the general, so what was that life like? And then being open to seeing those nuggets that say, oh yeah, I could do that. I could put that in my life and make some changes and I could be better for this or something like that. Am I right?
Yeah, I agree. It's being open from multiple sources. And the other thing that I read a blog post by Seth Godin about a few weeks ago that kind of pinpointed this was being able to like notice patterns, being able to notice where success has certain constants through a lot of people. Like pattern recognition is more about the knowledge and the actual information, and then like just noticing the pattern and noticing what's similar is important. Because I get the same advice from multiple sources. If I read one book and read the next book and the person says the same thing, or there's two different philosophies with a different wrapper on them, but they all get to the same nugget. I think that's really, really important to be able to see the constant sort of in all the variables of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Again, sets you up to receive
exactly
good pieces of information that you can put to use and profit from. Good stuff. Yeah. So another way to look at it is the frustration when you've been giving the good advice and you've got somebody that just won't take it. I don't know. Is that an option? Is that an option to talk about? Is there even anything there to talk about? That how do we determine when to give that advice?
I do think there's a lot of timing into it. No, like timing the truth that you tell, because if the person hasn't had an experience that they can maybe apply the knowledge well, it's hard for them to want to listen. Like there are situations where it's easier to show somebody and create an experience for them to understand something than to just throw words at them, especially if they're not seeking it. Like if they're not seeking it and they don't want to listen.
Oh, the unsolicited, yeah.
They're not going to, but
then it's going to be completely dependent on your level of influence on them.
Yeah. Experience is the best teacher because like every single one of our senses is in that moment and we really internalize it, which is different.
I can agree with that. But even then, even then, some people, and maybe myself, that's something I can take a look at. I'm not sure. But even then, they came seeking, they got, and then they didn't put it to use. Has that ever happened? I mean, where you just, you can see it happening in other people. And I wonder if sometimes it doesn't happen to us. I've just never thought of it that way. In terms of this particular statement, profiting from good advice, are you or aren't you? That's all.
Yeah. I think about it from a teacher perspective too, because when you're a teacher and you have these teenagers in your room and you want them to set themselves up for success, so you teach them subject, you give them advice, and then my dad talks about it all the time because he's a math teacher. It's hard for he wants to help them, he wants to give them the advice and he wants them to improve, but it's tough because they're not seeking it. He can see the laziness and he can see that they're distracted and that they don't want to work hard. And sometimes it's frustrating to him because he wants to help them so much, but he doesn't know how to get it to them. But he'll get to a few students, I guess. If he gets to a couple, that matters to him. Yeah. All right, I'll hop out here.
Okay, Matt. Thank you so much.
You don't have to go on count on me.
Oh, don't take it personally, Preston.
Don't take it personally. I only get 25 minutes because work. So
yeah.
Woo, Friday.
Yay! Woohoo! Go forth and have a good time, right?
Have a good day.
Celebrating the weekend and then you're running the week. I'm not on that. All right.
See you, dear.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Preston. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Was having problems.
Perfectly fine.
Fantastic. He was freezing, so I thought it was on my end.
No, he was freezing on my end as well.
Okay. So yeah, no, I mean, you're talking obviously, about advice, and I was mentioning that I have, I've had lots of advice, and some of it is good, some of it isn't. There have been many cases, unfortunately, that have taken advantage of me and my skill level, because even though I was independent, they still recognized, hey, he's willing to do all of this work, and I don't have to pay him anything. And so therefore, if he does that, I don't have to do it, and we could still make money. And he just wants half of what I make, And I was dumb.
Right, I'm not seeing that there any good advice in there.
No.
Other than to avoid that situation.
Right, but
the advice is, let's avoid that from happening, shall we?
But when you're young, right? I was young at one point. I was out of high school. I just got into college, and I got my first job as an independent contractor for an advertising firm. Okay, and it was a brand new advertising thing. We did coupon advertising paper. It was a new thing in the area. Well, not new, but we were competing against others. And I was excited about being there because that's kind of what I really wanted to do. And all of a sudden, I get this job. So unfortunately, you will do what you need to do in order to, please the boss, so to speak. And,
right.
And he wasn't my partner at the time. And I performed very well, and he gave me some phenomenal advice to get out there and do stuff. So I learned a lot from him. I'm not saying that all the advice he gave me, Good. But as we developed, he realized, I think what he realized is he says, oh my gosh, either I have to keep him or he's going to become a competitor of mine, And so what happened is he created a management system underneath me, and I didn't like being micromanaged. So it just didn't work out, and I moved on. So, but yeah, you gotta, the advice that most people give you is honest and true, but you have to know that they want you for you to succeed, not for them to succeed only.
Okay.
So that's what
So that's one good piece of advice actually that we can offer here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the other is, I like what Brian is saying, that advice is only as good as the receiver's ability to apply that advice.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It's still good advice. It's still up to you to determine whether or not you're going to actually put it to use. I like what Preston is saying, that when it comes with the intention behind the advice being given matters. And we have Ken who's saying that to be useful, he thinks advice has to be as specific and personal and timely as possible. Otherwise, it's homilies and platitudes. And while I'm a personal lover of homilies and platitudes, I'm in agreement with Ken, you know. So welcome, Angie. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
Do you know Preston? Preston, meet Angie. Angie, meet Preston if you haven't met them.
Hello. Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment on that one that flew by in the chat
Yeah.
about how you can apply the advice. It's only as good as how you can apply it. But the problem I see with that is if you get good advice and you're not good at applying it, it's bad advice.
Well, yeah, you just negated the idea of it being good advice.
Yeah. But when I run into advice, unfortunately for me, it's always been health related, right? And I pretty much throw that over my shoulder and walk away from it or roll away from it. But when it came to business, honestly, I've always used my personal life advice and applied that to my business. Okay, and it's kind of hard to maybe wrap your brain around that. But for example, if I have to do, say invoicing, all right, I actually have to mentally and physically prepare myself. All right, and then I take that advice on how to design it, how to lay it out and make it readable and all that other stuff and how efficient you can be. All that advice works. But there are things sometimes that just don't apply. So part of the advice that I sometimes give is you got to know when the advice is good and when it's bad. And a lot of comments go by, well, it depends on what you want. And everybody is kind of the same mindset. But I also don't like advice telling me what to do. Because seriously, in my perspective, they don't know me. I mean, they might know the business, and there's a lot of commonality in business, but I think you also have to be swift enough to realize what those differences are.
Great point.
Yeah, and when people want advice and they don't listen to it, I just walk away. Take it or leave it. If you want it, great. If you don't, or you got questions, come back. But I'm not going to ram it down their throat.
Excellent point.
Because I'm too short. Sorry.
I knew you were going to come out with something. I'm going to let you do that, dear, because you do it so well.
Yeah. Oh, and can I ask you a question? Is the angle of my webcam different from your side? Because I did move it.
I don't. Huh? What do you mean?
Well, the last time I had my webcam over here. Right? So the cam's over here, but my eyes would be over there.
Okay, it's not that big of a difference.
Okay.
I can still see a part of the cabinet.
And it does
behind your left shoulder.
Yeah, because I just didn't want people to think I was being rude.
No, you look adorable.
That's all I wanted to comment on was the advice thingy.
Good.
And I still have paperwork to do, so I can't listen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angie.
Bye, guys.
No Blister talk today, Angie. Oh, geez, Ken, you had to bring that up, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Angie's a lot of fun. She is a terrific gal, and brings that type of stuff to the conversation. So, welcome everybody. Those new to the room, we're in general the concept, if you will, or the idea that many receive good advice, few profit from it. Will you?
Laura was saying.
Take that how you want, and that's really what we're just talking about. Just easy breezy. Talk about good advice, and do you give it? Do you get it? Have you profited from it? What's it look like? That sort of stuff. Go ahead, Preston.
I was saying Laura was talking about something that I have heard and I have applied that, when people do give you advice.
Oh, Angie.
Angie, I'm sorry. Oh, I looked
you were
at
seeing Laura.
Yes. It's like the shopping cart method. When you go to a grocery store, you don't take everything in your grocery store. You pick and choose
what you want. Leave
what you want. Exactly. What you want. And it's really, you take what you think you need at the time, because you can hear the advice, let's say from my wife. Okay. She gives me advice all the time. I don't always take it because I don't think it's applicable to me at the time. Mm-hmm. But then down the road, I realize, well, that was good advice. And I think we do that in business too, is that when we have mentors, we want to, hopefully you have a mentor that is a little bit more capable than you are, right? That's the whole point of being a mentor.
There is a strong hope that
exactly.
Here's a piece of advice for everybody. How's that?
It's sure that it's.
If you're going to get a mentor, make sure it's somebody who knows more than you do.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead.
but I've also, your ambition level or above, because some mentors, don't have the same, even if they're higher level in skill, they don't always have the same vision. One thing I learned about myself just recently.
That's a good point on mentorship, because that's different than a coach.
It is. Very different than a coach. It is. And one thing I learned on, again, I don't want to put that 16 personalities, but I learned a lot about myself. And it looks like I'm a debater, and I didn't realize.
Oh.
I was a debater.
Don't freeze on me now.
Oh no, I'm freezing.
You froze. You didn't realize you were a debater. That's where
That's exactly what it is. But and I don't like necessarily debate problems here. Yeah. Am I freezing more?
Yeah.
Let me try to get out of my two windows and see if that makes a difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't load up the bandwidth, Preston.
No, it should be fine. I got 5 megabytes of upload speed.
See, it works great Zoom there until you start talking about yourself. Sorry. It's not a signal of any sort. No. Sorry. As you can tell, I've known Preston for a while. So anyway.
I know I'm freezing like crazy. I could see everybody just like.
Yeah.
So, but no, I guess what I was saying is that the coach, yeah, like you said, the mentor is different than the coach. I have had coaches and they don't think the same way. They have good advice. Like I got a recent coach right now. He has phenomenal advice. And he even was nice enough to give me a referral when I don't really know him that well. It's the second session, but because we had such a good rapport with each other, and it had nothing to do with business, he decided to give me a referral. And that referral now, as I talked to him yesterday, might turn into some huge business opportunities that I would have never even imagined having, So, but I think, the advice that I got from him was, not only on the goals that you set, right? But to be able to actually look at what you do on a daily basis. Have you met that goal for the day? Yes. And if you haven't, why haven't you?
I am so glad you brought that up.
It was planned.
Oh yeah, okay. Your $5 is good. I am because so I facilitate mastermind groups for small business owners, solopreneurs, and I have right now 2 levels of groups. One is the kind of get it done group, 90 days, meet twice a month. It's amazing what you can get done in 90 days when you have people that are focused on helping you to focus on getting it done. The second one, though, is and that truly is goals and accountability focused. That's what it's about. The second one is a minimum commitment of 6 months, and oftentimes gets re-upped because the group gets really tight. And it really is focused on growing your business as needed, whatever is needed there. Well, one of the things that we start with is the goals, but learning how to break those goals down into not just 90 days, not just every couple weeks, but into the dailies. Let's break it down. And one of the things that I'm going to be offering in that second group is a daily goal journal. It'll be a part of your, sign-on fee, so to speak. You're going to get this little journal. And the idea is that we help you to break it down so that you know what to do daily.
Exactly.
And that the part I'm really getting excited about is that so many people don't know the how of what you just said and what I just said of how do we break it down into the daily tasks? What does that look like? It's more than just a routine.
Mm-hmm.
There are specific things you can be doing each day to achieve the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So please, I just got excited, so I had to share that.
No,
Go ahead.
that's good. No, and another advice I got, which is really good too, and he has a course that's actually no cost because he wants to give back, is the fact that you on a daily basis, you always hear a voice, always. And what you need to do is confront that voice and say, well, maybe you think that's going to happen, but you don't know the future. And I know what I'm doing right now is going to work, or I know what I'm doing right now is the right thing to do. And you stand up to that voice. And the more you stand up to that voice, all of a sudden that voice doesn't come in as often.
Love
right?
that.
And then as you start developing that skill, then all of a sudden that advice actually that comes from the voice is actually a lot better quality. And now they are saying, and it's somehow saying, hey, you can do this. You can do this. You got this. You understand this. You're smarter than you think you are. You know, I mean, all these different things. And it's really worked well, you know, even in my personal life, you know. So that's my advice.
I love that. So all right. I personally really like that because I too am a believer that the first few minutes upon awakening are, you know, essentially are going to be how you set your day, right? Now you can change it along the way, but why not? And what I'm hearing you say is why not change it quickly? Mm-hmm. Why not change it in the way you're thinking each morning? Let's see if I heard you correctly. So can I make the decision now and kind of outline what it is I'm going to tell myself now so that tomorrow morning when I wake, I can have it in front of me, and that's the beginning of confronting the voice?
That's an interesting thought. And it probably would work. Try it.
I don't know. What is it that you're doing? I mean, you just recognize when you wake up and say, oh, no, you're not going to fit my day. We're going to do this instead. I don't know. I just want to know what it looks like. That's all. As soon as you unfreeze.
I don't know what's going on.
It's okay. That's all right.
So I didn't hear it.
Because it's great advice. It actually is fantastic advice. Just wondered if you've put it to use, and it obviously looks a little different than the way I put it out there.
Yeah.
How to.
Yeah, I have. I mean, like I said, I'm working with him and just kind of going back and forth with him on email. The neat thing is he has this series. He used to throw it out all at once. And, you know, we as humans, we want to consume, but if there's too much consumption, we get full and we get frustrated and our heads are spinning, you know?
Okay.
So he's doing it in little chunks. So he identifies certain things and says, okay, did you do this? Okay, what did you learn from it? Okay, if you learned from it, did you take notes on it? Did you journal it? You know, did you understand what you went through and why you went through it? And what do you need to do the next time to not go through the same thing? You know, don't repeat your mistakes. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to make mistakes, but you do. You just do, because there's, you know, you lay out the plans of what you want to do. But when you get into the market, it's a lot different than the plan sometimes. Right?
Well, gosh darn, people get in there.
Exactly.
You're taking something to market, gosh darn, there's people involved, and they'll muck up the works every time. They'll screw with that plan every time, won't they?
And you know, people in the entrepreneur world, you know, especially those that are just starting off, they think it's going to be easy. It's going to take 3 months, 6 months. You know, if you're not committed to be an entrepreneur for life, you won't make it. It's just, you just cannot do something for 3 months and expect results. Now, some people have it in them because of either training or other people that they get advice from. You know,
what are they? So one way to look at this too, though, is what do you come into the new business with?
Dreams.
So you come into you've got that, and if you add in a slew of previous experience as a business owner and you start a new business, then it's almost expected you're going to have quicker success than somebody who's coming in with just the dream. Only because you're going to be coming into it with the experience to be able to say, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle this, do this, take care of this. And you've got the shortcut. Yeah. The shortcut being all your own advice and learnings from feedback from what you've done before, successes, so you can repeat it, failures that you learned from, so they became successes. All that comes into play. So it's very different than somebody coming in with, I've got the dreams, and in 90 days, I should be making $50,000 a month. Very different. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to put that out there, that some people can. That's why some people can take off on something, especially in the online world. Mm-hmm. If you've spent time building an email list of trusted people that trust you, when you start something new or offer something, they trust you. They open the email because of you, not because of the business that you're in, but because of the value you've been providing to them in a variety of ways. You've built those relationships. Mm-hmm. Totally different than somebody coming in and saying, I don't have anybody to sell to right now. Right. You're starting from scratch.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's still possible. Just the expectations need to be weighed and realistic.
Right. And I think a lot of, you can talk to any millionaire and, what they say is if I lose everything, it wouldn't matter. I'd be able to get back to that point eventually, because they know, because they've been there before,
Right.
And I know a friend of mine actually that has built a business for the last 4 years, and he's very successful. I mean, he was very, very successful, but now doing his business, even though he has the context, he's not doing so well, mm-hmm. and it's like, it's strange to me because I'm like, wait a minute, you got all these skills, you got all these people connections. Why is something failing? Mm-hmm. Well, it's possible that the market's not ready for it. Even though he thought it was, even though he did the research on it. Like I said, the plans, if you're an entrepreneur and not willing to, adjust that course, just kind of like a ship, right? You adjust the course, mm-hmm. and that ship goes one way. But if you just move that rudder just a little bit, you're way off course. You're like miles, thousands of miles away, and good analogy to being the travel business, right?
Yes, I know. I caught that.
You have a lot of waves.
In the travel business, should you be interested in going to beautiful places, yes, follow Preston.
Yeah, you're welcome to follow my advice. No, and I'm not a travel agent. I just show beautiful locations.
Yes.
And you might get stuck in those places. So just.
Oh, to be stuck there in person would be an awesome thing. Some of those places that I've seen. But anyway, keep talking. This is fabulous stuff. See, to me, this is all good advice. Mm-hmm. That which you're sharing. It's not given in the context of, I'm going to give you advice so that you are better in your life, right? Mm-hmm. It's not being forced on anybody's throat. It is just a general discussion, and yet I look at everything you've just described as good advice, and many of us could profit from it.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is great because we're talking, we're friends, we know each other, we know what mm-hmm. we're doing, we want to help each other, you know. And I think there's too many people out there that, I'll give you advice, but you need to pay me $1,000. You don't even know me. How are you going to give me advice?
That goes back to Angie, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Angie's saying, well, you don't know me. Exactly. Thank you very much. But so there's a variety of ways we can receive good advice. Mm-hmm. That's one of the main points I'd like to have out of this whole discussion is that we can go actively seek it. So I could come to Preston and say, listen, I'm about to embark on something that I think you have experience in. How do you think I should approach this? Mm-hmm. Personally, I know Preston to be a quality sales guy. So and I know you don't put yourself out as a sales trainer, but honestly, if I have questions, I've thought of you recently about the sales process. Preston would be one I go to actively seek advice. Mm-hmm. Somebody who does it well, knows the process, and knows me just enough that I know that he would listen to me, weighing all that. So I actively go looking for it. I jump into discussions like this, as Preston does, and just share what's been told to me, our own experiences. And as I'm listening, either by active participation or off to the side, I'm hearing things that are, whoa, that's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think
Just because
Kathy,
it has the word advice to it doesn't mean that it has to be, I'm giving you this advice, go take it and run.
right. And I think
Okay.
Kathy has said something right on the side. You know, we often folks are looking for the easy button, and change is not the easy button. You know, so those are great branding. And that's true. You know, I think I explained this in another blab, maybe not yours, Charlene, but the best advice on the change is that we all want to change, but we don't want to do the work to do the change. No one likes to change. We know we want to change. We know the results of the change, but no one really wants to do the work of the change, right? And I'll give you a good analogy of that. Let's say you have a mountain, right? And it's steep. Well, what do? There's a big boulder there right in front of you. Do you just sit there and wonder, okay, well, the boulder will move itself? No, you have to push that boulder up that mountain. And it's not easy. It's not simple. You know, people who are not entrepreneurs don't understand that part of entrepreneurship is that you're determined to move that boulder even an inch just to get further to change. But then you get up into that plateau where it rests, right? And then a lot of people rest there and they're like, oh, I did all this work, so now I'm going to rest. No, you got to keep on going, you know.
Well, and a lot of, yeah, you froze. I'm sorry.
I saw myself.
That's okay. But what you're talking about, actually, be it an entrepreneur who is somebody who starts something from scratch, or a business owner who takes an existing business model and makes it their own. That's me. We both have that drive to be challenged and get through the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That it's we have our sights set on the destination. Travel set on the destination, and we have the map to get there, and it's big enough, the destination's important enough that we were willing to go through the challenges, and many of us actually thrive on the challenges. In some cases I do, in other cases I'm not going to call it thriving. I just put my nose to the grindstone, do the hustle, get it done. You know, it has to be done. Get it done. Doesn't matter what I think, feel, or believe. It's going to get me where I need to go. Just do it, dang it, you know. Mm-hmm. And other times it is actively saying, boy, this is a pretty cool challenge, right? But either way, I always grow from the end result.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got, what you were talking about, is the part of the drive, is we're working towards something. And if you want to get someplace, you're going to have to work for it. Yeah. And sometimes you enjoy the work and sometimes you don't.
I heard some.
Well, darn, because you know it was really good.
That, unfortunately. I don't know. So I think I'm going to bail because that's bugging me that I'm freezing that much and I got to figure out what's going on.
It's getting distracting now. Yeah.
It is. It is. But thanks for having me on.
Oh, loved it, Preston. Anytime. You're welcome any morning.
All right, thanks. Have a good day, guys.
Okay, you too. So we've got, quite a few new people coming through the room. Hello, welcome. So what we're talking about is giving and getting good advice. And what do you do with it? Are you doing anything with it? Have you actively sought good advice and then didn't profit from it? Which means you didn't put it into action. How do you weigh whether or not the advice is good for you? Interesting discussions going off to the side. Love what Catherine's saying, is that good advice is just words if I don't apply what I learn. And that's it. They're just words in the wind. Hence, many will be exposed to good advice. And be it through what I'm envisioning is going to a conference, industry-specific conference, listening to a keynote speaker who has experience in that industry, and the advice from the stage is spot on. Okay. So out of that, in all honesty, I can tell you that few will profit from the advice that was given from the stage. Some chose not to put it into action. Maybe they weren't ready for it. Maybe they weren't past the fear of being able to put it in place, recognize it as good advice. It just lazy, trying to settle for what they have. You know, I'm thinking specifically that this is in response to Ken to the side saying, don't think advice is good just because you're paying for it. And I put that in the context of a conference. So very, very specific industry. Okay, very specific industry. Top-notch person speaking from the stage. Every individual in the conference is in the industry actively working to build their business, grow their business. And it's not huge. I mean, we're not talking 5,000 people in a room. We're talking anywhere from 80 to 100 people. That's how small this specific profession is. And how small in attendance to a conference is. But it's one of the best conferences I ever go to every year. And watching those people and listening and frantically taking notes, talking about it afterwards, discussion over the next day or so of how to put it into action. Other people saying, yes, I've done this and it works so well. It works so well. It works so well. And then the following year, or even during the year, talking with the people, and only a few actually put it into action. Now, I'm not going to question why the others didn't put it into action, but right now I'm going to say and ask you, and I'm asking myself at the same time, did I put it into action? Did I profit from that good advice that I recognized, that I made note of, that I saw would be good for me, that was something I could put into action? Did I? A year has gone by. We're coming up on conference time in a couple weeks. A year has gone by. Have I profited from that good advice I recognized? And if I didn't, why not? See, I think that's good to ask ourselves those kind of questions. It's good for me because when I pointedly ask myself that question, I'm holding myself accountable. I spent money to go to that conference, right? I mean, that's one way to look at it. The cost-benefit analysis here. Hey, by gosh, I spent money. So why didn't I put it to use? And that's the question that I have to ask myself and answer, and you answer for yourself. There's reasons. Of course there's reasons. And can I grow from those reasons? That's the reason I'm putting it out there. So what about paying the price of good advice even when it's painful to implement? Now you're double paying. Just all I can say is like a tip. JP. Good advice needs to be restructured according to the individual's environment. Yes, it is individualized. So general advice of how to grow a business, of ways to do something better, of getting yourself things such as getting yourself organized, setting a goal and breaking it down, chunking it down into 90 days, into weeklies, into dailies, that kind of advice, where I can recommend to you that a really good way to get that really big dream to be a reality is to break it down into what does it look like, and let's work backwards to how to get there so that you have daily things that can be done to move you closer to the dream. So I can provide those recommendations. It's up to you on what that looks like in your daily life and how you put it to use. And it's up to me when somebody tells me that, right? So yes, I agree. It depends on me. Am I seeking it? And it also is up to me to hold myself accountable. I think that's another lesson that I can take away from this morning, is that put it to use and then check on myself. Did I actually put it to use so that I could profit from it? And those new to the room, profit in terms of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as financial. Did I get more out of putting it to use than what I had when I first heard it? That to me is profit in this sense. Okay, good stuff. Oh, Catherine, so good you were here. I know you're gone now, but I'm going to say, hey, Catherine, shout out to you. So glad you stopped by. We are at the top of the hour, so I will close the recording. Happy to stay in here for another half hour or so for continued discussion. I'll open the seat up and let's talk about what you've heard this morning, if there's any good stuff. If not, that's cool too. Those of you watching the replay, thanks for hanging with us this long. Thank you for those jumping into the live stream and participating in the conversation. And thank you to those in the comment section for some excellent side commentary that has added to the discussion. I appreciate you all. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Let's move forward with the day on purpose with purpose to grow our hearts, grow our minds, and grow our businesses. Until next time, have a great day.